channel, documenting our journey to financial independence. Our family started using credit cards in earnest about 2 years ago. This video will explain why we decided to use credit cards and what we learned along the way. In a follow-up video, we'll also go over the cards we have in our wallets today. This is our family's experience with credit cards and might not match your own needs and wants. So, why did we decide to rely on credit cards? This was a big mental shift for us because we started with the belief that you should never buy on credit if you can help it, as you end up paying a lot more because of interest. Understanding that it could actually be quite beneficial to own and use credit cards was a big change for us. The importance of having a good credit score in the US was our first motivating factor. For instance, we needed it in the past for rental applications. There are ways to convince a prospective landlord that you would be a good renter without a credit score, but it is harder. We will also need a good credit score to get good mortgage rates when we embark on our real estate investing journey. Better mortgage rates can make a big difference, easily some tens of thousands of dollars over a 30-year mortgage. Less applicable to our family, but noteworthy all the same, is that your credit score will influence many other types of loans that you can get, such as car loans. A little later in the video, I'll share our credit scores and dive deeper into the factors that influence it and the tips that I've learned along the way. We also decided to use credit cards for one of our highest spend category, which is grocery, because we found out that you can obtain cash back for your normal everyday purchases. There are multiple ways to get rewarded based on a credit card use. Some of the most rewarding ones include getting intro bonuses. For instance, the company will give you, say, $100 if you spend $1,000 in the first 3 months. But you can also get a set percent of cash back, say $3 if you spend $100 at Target. Getting points, for example, 300 points if you spend $100 in entertainment, or you can get miles. There are many ways to optimize the way you use credit card to get the most value, and there's a lot of resource online to help. For my family, I've chosen to keep things relatively simple and optimize for cashback. For now, it's brought in a little over $3,000. Finally, let's just mention that credit cards automatically give you incredibly strong protections when you happen to buy, for instance, defective products, or you experience a lousy service scenario like a car repair where no repair actually happened. There are also perks associated with credit cards that can be quite lucrative, but in my opinion, it should not be the sole reason for you to go and get a credit card. The bottom line on our approach to credit cards is that we want to avoid paying any interest on our credit cards. We are very fortunate that we have not had to meet any of our needs with credit from credit cards, and we are very careful about being able to afford our wants. If you are in a different situation where you carry high interest consumer debt, you should probably focus on addressing that. There are some great resources online. I'm thinking, for instance, of the debt snowball method that Dave Ramsey explains in his YouTube videos. An interesting point is that some studies suggest that credit cards can make you spend more. So you're going to need to be very disciplined and make sure you maintain your spending patterns. I believe self-awareness combined with tracking your spending can go a long way to avoid these pitfalls. So we've mentioned that having a credit score is one of the top reasons for us to get into the credit card game. So what is a credit score? Well, it's a number that helps the lenders decide if you are trustworthy or not. It should be obvious, I hope, that this credit score does not capture any notion of personal worth. There are many variations on how to compute a credit score. The two main scores used are the FICO score and the Vantage score. Note that even for these scores, there are a lot of variations on each of the models used. There is a constant though. The higher the score, the better. Let's look at the FICO score in particular. About 1/4 of the population has what is known as a very good credit score, and that is where my husband and I are today. Above 800 is the exceptional category, and that corresponds to 20% of the population. That is where you will get the best mortgage rates, and that is definitely where we are trying to get to. You should know and track your credit score. It's a dynamic number, and it will evolve as the data that feeds into the model changes. So what is that data? To compute a credit score, some of your personal financial data is gathered by credit bureaus. There are 3 bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You should check these reports on a regular basis. You are entitled to access your credit report for every agency once a year for free, which is about 1 report every 3 months. I believe with the COVID crisis, credit bureaus are actually increasing that to 1 free report per week. The links included here are a good place to get those reports. I'll add them in the description below. My preferred way, however, is to use the credit monitoring tools that credit card company provides. I find the interface much more user-friendly. Credit card companies also allow their customers to track the different factors that influence a credit score very easily. Here is a FICO score monitored with Discover. It has a helpful chart that confirms that credit scores increase with age of the customer, and this gives you a little bit more context. Okay, so let's try to understand what are the parameters behind a credit score. The highest impact factor on the FICO score is the number of missed payments. It accounts for 35% of your score. Honestly, the best way to make sure you don't miss any payment is to enroll all of your cards in autopay. If you know you are going to be late, reach out proactively with the creditor and see if you can reach an understanding or a repayment plan so they don't report it to the credit bureaus. Moving on to the second most important factor, and that is credit utilization. It is the amount you owe divided by the credit available. You can compute this overall for all of your cards, or you can compute this per card. What I like to do is I like to keep my credit utilization to less than 10% per card. If you have a credit limit of $10,000, don't keep a balance on that card of more than $1,000. So when we have big expenses on our credit cards, we pay it before the due date. Then it doesn't impact our credit utilization score. Next up is the length of credit, which accounts for 15% of your score. You can see that this is a factor where we're not performing very well. Only time will fix this. Actually, not opening too many accounts will also help, as it would avoid driving the average age down. An important note: don't close no annual fee cards. Having them around keeps the age of the credit looking good. For cards with an annual fees that are not a good match anymore, downgrade to a no fee card and keep it open. Next factor by order of importance is the number of accounts. The only type of accounts that we have are credit cards, which are called revolving accounts. We pay cash for a car and therefore do not have any loans associated to a car payment. So it is important to get a high enough number of accounts on your credit report. High enough is usually around 5, from my understanding. If you have less than that, your file is called a thin file and is a red flag for lenders. I was personally rejected from a Citi credit card because I had what they called a thin file. You want to aim for a thick file. So what do you do when you have a thin file? Maybe you just moved to the US, or maybe you've just started on your credit card journey. One of the very nice tools is to get a secured card, and I really recommend the Discover It secured card. I really liked it for my own journey. You can also choose to apply for no annual fee cards that don't have a lot of perks but are also easier to get. The Platinum MasterCard from Capital One is a great example of this. The last factor is the number of inquiries. So there are 2 types of inquiries: a hard inquiry versus a soft inquiry. This is information from the Experian website. A hard inquiry occurs when a lender with whom you've applied for credit reviews your credit report as part of their decision-making process. A soft inquiry occurs in cases where you check your own credit or where when a lender or a credit card company checks your credit to pre-approve you for an offer. Note that only hard inquiries count against you in your credit score. They fall off after 2 years, and you should aim to have about 2 inquiries to make sure that that factor does not impact your credit score. That being said, this factor only accounts for 10% of the score. As I mentioned earlier, a second frequently used score is the Vantage score, which you can monitor through the Chase portal, for instance. On this scale, the score can be classified as either poor, fair, good, or excellent. So there's no very good category as there was in the FICO score. The parameters and their impact on the score varies compared to the FICO score, but you will find a lot of overlap. Let's look at the top 3 parameters. Payment history, very similar to the missed payment category we looked at previously, is the highest ranking factor. And again, you have to make sure that you have a 0 on that category. The second factor here is credit history, with 5 years also being in the fair category. This is very similar to what we saw on the FICO score. The third factor is credit usage, similar to the credit utilization rate we looked at previously. And you can see here why I aim to stay below the 10% ratio in order to remain in that great category. If you look a little bit more into these parameters, there are a few more than in the FICO score. And in particular, one that was not explicitly called out in the FICO score is the credit available. According to CNBC, Americans have an average of just above $22,000 in credit available to them across all of their credit cards. I hope this video will help you understand what a credit score is and what are easy ways to keep it hard and what are mistakes to avoid. Please comment if any of those tips are useful for you or if you have any of your own learnings to share. Look out for our next video, which will share the cards we keep in our wallet and the cashback we've received from each. Take care.